Hey, what's up? Once again, coming back at you with another episode. I just want to let you guys know I'm going to be starting up a podcast series. I haven't started it yet. I haven't gotten all my equipment or anything like that. So I've just been researching it, but I have a list of ideas that I'm going to put on podcast. Keep it regular. So stay tuned for that. I'll let you know. Also, I'm going to start networking with other YouTubers, you know, in the Christian realm. So you can see other ideas, other concepts, and stuff like that. I haven't done it now because it's just been very busy. Which actually brings me to the topic of today, which is so like this past week, I've been looking for a job for almost a month and something. Actually, more than that. But in where I'm at now, I've been looking for a job, and just one thing on top of another, and I just got very frustrated and upset. And I told God, and I told him I was upset with him for multiple reasons, and I'm very honest with God. So I'm just very direct with him. I don't cut corners. I even use profanity if it suits me. I just I tell him. You know, and so I haven't been struck down by lightning, and I doubt I will be. Um, and and it relieves my heart. It's kind of like allows me to just breathe, especially when I'm having these issues. But this time, like some of the other times before, it was very intense. I was very angry. I was very, very angry, and I told God. And during that during that time, I had something in the back of my mind that was asking. I was like asking myself, do I still believe in God? Do I still want to believe in God? Um, do I still want to trust God and stuff like that? And as I was, raging at God and everything like that, just being angry and stuff like that, I was, this thought that was in the back of my head was slowly coming towards the front of my head, and I find I was like, I, I was just finally like, I do trust God. I mean, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm upset. God, you could have done a lot. You could have done better. I've been trusting you up until this point, blah, 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 but I'm not going to stop trusting you because, things aren't going well or the way that I hope that they would. I'm just telling you I'm upset because they haven't gone well, but there's no point in not trusting you, not because, well, there's multiple reasons why, you know, I should be. I mean, there's multiple reasons why there is no reason to stop trusting him. Because everything that he's always promised me, he's always given me. Like there's nothing, and everything that I've asked for, I've always received. So it may not have been in my time, the time that I would hope for. It may not be exactly the way that I wanted it, but I've always got it, and I've always been happy with it. Like it's always been great. And sometimes I've had to teach myself to be happy with it because then I'm like, oh, because if I would have received it the way that I wanted it, it might not have worked out so well, blah, 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 blah. That I have to tell myself that so I can be content with what I have. But it's not me, conceding. It's not me being like, um, oh, well, I asked for, this, but I got some crappy something or whatever, and I'm just going to be able to do it. It's never been that. It's been, I asked for this, I get something um, that resembles this, but that touches more to the reason why I want it. So, for example, in place of a job, not now because I still don't have a job, but before, if I'm looking for if I'm looking for a job in a specific area, I'd be like, oh, this is the job that I want, and then I end up not getting it. And then I end up getting another job. I look back and I'm just like, well, actually, the job that I was looking for, um, I would have probably been frustrated or upset or angry after a certain time because it's actually not really what I wanted. What I really wanted was this, that, and the other, and I would have known without having received the second job, which was the job I wasn't asking for particularly, but I got it. And there's a lot of I'm pretty sure you have situations where that has happened to you. So the point is that God has always given me what it is that He promised me and what it is that I've asked for. You know, so there's no reason to stop trusting God. And there's a text in the Bible. I don't know it right now. It just came to my mind. But there's a text in the Bible where it's in the Old Testament where God was like, what have I done that you would turn away from me? He was like, tell me what I've done wrong. And the problem, the thing is, I mean, yes, He's allowed a lot of crap to happen to me, but on one hand, but on the other hand, he's, I've always gotten through it. I've always been stronger for getting through it, and I've always received what I wanted. So yeah, I don't want to go through this crap, but if I have to go through this crap, at least I want God to be honest with me, you know, and He is. And then I realized, and then after I told myself, yes, I'm going to continue trusting you, God, because I just you haven't lied to me and stuff like that. And after I told him that, then I praised His name. It was a very timid praise. It wasn't like, "Ah, thank you, Jesus," jump up and down and waving my hands around in the air or anything like that. But I just kind of whispered it because I was on the train or whatever. But I whispered it while I was looking out the window at the passing hills, and I was like, "I do praise you, God, because I am going through a lot of pain and anger and frustration, but I praise you because you've never failed me. You've never failed me. In fact, you promised that I would go through hard times, but you promised also that you would see me through them and that I would never want anything. I would never have a want for anything. Never lack, never, whatever. And it's always, he's always taking care of me. So I did praise Him. And then, my, the cloud of frustration kind of lifted. So then I realized, thinking back on that, I realized, the biggest fight that we have on earth, I know we have, especially as Christians, we have a lot of rules that we've set up uh, for ourselves. Rules about how to keep the Sabbath, rules about how to pay tithe, rules about how to treat your neighbor, rules about this, rules about that, and the other. Trying to make it to heaven. And the real fight is not about keeping these rules. The real fight is about, regardless of what happens, regardless of the crap that you go through, are you going to trust God? And He's not like asking you to trust Him, without knowing who He is. That's absolutely absurd. Like He didn't ask the Israelites to trust Him as He was leading them out of of Egypt. You know, I mean, well, as He was preparing to get them out of Egypt. He was like showing them. He was like, He didn't even go to Israel. He went to Pharaoh. And through the miracles that He was doing, against Pharaoh and stuff like that, He was proving Himself to Israel. So when He told Israel, "Get up and let's go," they could believe, "Oh, okay, let's get up and go." And then when we got to the Red Sea, which was like the first test, then they wanted to complain again. And He's like, "I literally just performed 10. Literally just performed 10 miracles you saw which you saw with your own eyes, and you're still going to distrust me, even if you're in a hard place, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You're still going to distrust me. Okay, I'm going to show you again. Okay, this time stronger proof." He opens up the Red Sea. They cross, and then their pursuants drown in the Red Sea. Okay, and then He takes them into the wilderness. They have 40 days to cross this wilderness, right? And He's saying, "Do you trust me?" And they're like, "We're hungry." And he was like, "I know, but do you trust me? Or do you believe me? Do you believe that I'm I'm God?" Because it's not this is going to another video, but it's very important to believe and to trust Him and to hold to the fact that to His promises. Because if you don't, you're going to start looking for other ways, other gods, as the Bible calls them. But you're just going to look for other ways, like you're going to look to money, you're going to look to other people, or something like that, and then they're going to fail you, which is going to hurt you even more, and then all kinds of various issues arise from there. So the real point is getting back to the point, the nucleus of it is, do you trust me? I know you're going through a hard time. I know you're going through the wilderness. I'm there with you, but are you going to trust me? Because I will take you through it, is what he's saying. He's like, I'll take you through it, and you will succeed. You will make it through. Your head will be held high. I will protect you from your enemies and stuff like that. You might not see it, and it might not feel that way, but you can't trust your feelings, and you can't trust your sight. You just have to believe. And I'm telling you to believe because I've shown you what I'm capable of doing, and that I've done it in the past. Why wouldn't I do it in the future? Sort of thing. And in Israel, of course, we know the story. They didn't want to believe him. They didn't want to trust him. So as soon as they lost sight of him, they built a calf out of gold, and they were like, "Yeah, this is the God that led us out." And God was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, seriously?" And then when they didn't have any food, they complained. And it wasn't just, oh, they were complaining. No, they were like complaining. It was like, "Oh, God, you led us out of Egypt so we could die in the wilderness." Or well, they were saying that to Moses. But the point was, yeah, you guys, you've abandoned us. God, you've abandoned us. Moses, you are a murderer, and you're trying to kill us and stuff like that. And God's like, I can understand your frustration with not eating. I understand that. I understand your anger, whatever. But are you going to trust me anyway? And they were saying no. So God was like, he put up with them for 40 days, and then he had them walking around for 40 years until they died off because they just refused to trust him. And how do you know? It's because when they got to the Canaan, and God was like, "Okay, now go, take Canaan, and I'll be with you." And they were like, "No, they're too heavy. They're too strong, But they had 40 days plus everything that was happening in Egypt. They had all of that time between, leaving Egypt and getting up to Canaan to realize that God was going to be that God was walking with them, or was fighting with them, and they had all these things that happened in the wilderness, and then they got there, and then they refused to go because, well, they disobeyed God to go because they just didn't believe. That's the bottom line. They didn't believe. So when they could have gotten their blessing, everything that God promised them, and everything, when they could have gotten it, they refused to get it because they refused to believe. And so that's really the biggest fight that we have. I mean, that's what happened with Adam and Eve. I mean, that's why they got cast out of the garden, because Eve refused to believe. God said, don't do this. It was, strict rule. He said, "Don't do this," and he explained why. Because when you do it, you're going to die. And Eve was like, "I don't believe you." And God was like, "Okay." So and then she just turned her back on God. And then Adam doesn't really say what his thinking process was, but he ate it too, And then God was like, "Oh, what the heck? Like, I told you not to do it. I'm not like, And it's not even that they asked him. They just didn't do it, and they refused to believe. And then so they spent the rest of their life working on re-believing, God, in order to protect himself from the enemy, because the enemy was then let loose, and whatever. So yeah, pretty much the basics is, this is our entire fight. Are we going to believe God or not? I'll explain in another video why it's important to believe. I've touched on it in a number of cases. but it's going to get more poignant, explaining why it's very important to believe, because it is very important. Okay, so keep that with you. The moral of the story is believe. Remember the things that God has done for you, that He has promised you, the promises that He's kept. Remember that. Dwell on those things so that you can strengthen your faith. Because in the time when, like me, when you're going through the wilderness, the desert, I kind of felt like Job, you know. I was like, what the heck, God? I did nothing to deserve this. You know, I've been walking after the way that you taught me and stuff like that. What the heck? You know, and then Job's friends were coming and they were like, oh, well, you must have done something wrong. And you know, Job was like, I did nothing wrong. What are you talking about? Like, I don't, you know? And they just weren't hearing it. So that's kind of, and then his wife wasn't making things better. She was like, well, just curse that God and die. And Joe's like, you're ridiculous, you know. And that's how I feel, you know. That's how I felt at the, you know, last week. I was just like, I didn't feel like, yo, you're ridiculous, but you know, I was upset with God, just like Job was, and I was angry and I was demanding, you know, an answer and stuff like that. But when they came down to it, I had to choose whether I was still, regardless of whether I had the answer or not, whether I was going to trust God, whether I was going to believe Him or not. And luckily, thankfully, I remembered the things that He had done for me, the how He had brought me through, how it always, always, always works out. And I said, I do believe. You know, I believe. It's, you know, it's hard to say I believe when everything is going wrong. Um, but you know, that is your saving grace. Those are your wings. You know, just believing. So I hope I got, you know, I hope I got through to you. I explained a little something, something, and so I'll make another video next week. And until then, have fun.